Now moving to the work session. We have a customer service and citizen engagement update by our Assistant City Manager, Ms.
Thank you, Mayor
Kristen
Paul.
Byers-Smith.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So this was actually originally an item on your retreat agenda, but we had so much fun covering other topics that we didn't quite get to it. So tonight, Andrew and I will walk you through some customer service and community engagement strategies for the upcoming year. So on the next slide, as you know well, customer service is at the heart of everything that we do. We wanted to create a better way to track our customer experience. So last year we developed our customer service survey. Our first criteria for the survey was that it needed to be easy and quick. So we designed something that would take about 2 minutes to complete. We asked about the type of assistance people utilized, if they were satisfied with the service they received, who assisted them, and whether or not they would recommend that staff person. We also provide open space for any additional comments, questions, and contact information if they'd like us to reach out to them. Next slide. It was important to us that we promoted the survey through the mechanisms by which people engage with staff the most. So we created a QR code with handouts and signage. The signage that you see on the right is actually posted in our permitting and revenue lobby at the entrances and on the glass by all of our folks that sit up front. Additionally, we added an automatically generating signature, which you can see mine at the bottom of the slide. And this goes automatically whenever staff drops an email, and at the bottom you see participate in our customer service survey. So there's a link right there that people can click and go right to it. So on the next slide, we rolled out the survey in the fall of 2022, and 95% of our responses to date have been positive, with kind notes about our staff knowledge, professionalism, and responsiveness. I included a few comments for you to see the nature of the responses that we've received. The first is for John Liu in our Public Works Department, noting how he reached out to provide an explanation and an update on a ticket that someone submitted. The last one that you see notes our exceptional planning and permitting service, noting that even if we can't resolve the issue, we're always pleasant, friendly, and helpful. And on the last slide about this one, this last comment I wanted to share, it was from a contractor who notes their experience working in multiple municipalities across the region. They point out Brenda Page. Mind you, Brenda Page is a favorite in our survey responses. She's touched a lot of people. So Brenda and the permitting team exceeded their expectation, and the respondent notes that our team are a great model for the level of customer service that should be mirrored by all municipalities. So we're really proud to see this in our survey results. So on the next slide, with that overview of our survey, I'll turn it over to our Communications Director, Andrew Allison, to provide an overview of our communications and upcoming initiatives.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. I was originally supposed to present at the retreat on the 30th, which would have actually marked my 1 month anniversary of being on the job. So I've been here just over a month, so I'm really excited to be here to present for all y'all today. So to pick up where Kristen left off regarding citizen engagement, I want to go over a couple of tactics our office is looking into this year to really drive home and tell the story of Sandy Springs through that lens of citizen engagement. And specifically, we want to target 3 key audiences with that. And that's going to be our Sandy Springs residents, the media, and our internal stakeholders. So I'll go into more detail on these in a second, but broadly with our first audience with the residents, we've identified a couple of areas that we need to put a little extra work on. That is revamping our city news section on the city's website, roll out the Week in Review video, which we branded as Inside Sandy Springs, which we've already done that. Implement a social media strategic plan, and that falls into more of a comprehensive communication strategy that we're working on, but I want to highlight social media specifically. And also looking at our monthly newsletter and ways we can further improve upon that. So the first thing is the city news, as I'm sure most of you all have gone to our website. If you go to the city news page, you're going to be met with kind of it's a little bit of a hodgepodge of what is hard city news, city updates, city closures, all things of which are important, But when you're looking at what a city news page should be and sort of how we want to be the in-house newsroom for the city, there's some ways we feel we can better lay out this layout to better inform the citizens. So we're still in the early stages of the design for this, but we've already dug deep into some of the things that are possible. One of those is being able to implement video updates in this. So there are certain things that maybe don't make sense for a press release or for anything like that, but we can do a video update of like a public works project, things like that, which we're really, really excited about. And we're trying to find a way to really differentiate what is a city news item, a hard news item, and what is more of a city update or community update. And that's coming, momentum is picking up on that, and working on that moving forward. The next piece is the social media strategy, which, like I said, is part of our broader communications plan. But we want to adopt more of a formal social media strategic plan. We have several goals with this. A big one is to increase unified branding across city department social media pages. At the moment, it's not quite in line, and we'll make sure if you're on a page, you know you're on a Sandy Springs department social media page. We also want to have a consistent social media posting calendar. This is something that we've already started to implement. If y'all follow us on social media, you've seen this, and that's already resulted in a large increase in engagement across all platforms, which I'll go into in just a second. And also providing social media training to departments who run city social media pages, so we are always we're pushing the same message across, everything's the same tone, and the branding is all the same. One thing we've done, for example, is for city council meetings. We've started posting when those go live, posted the agendas to those, and honestly, that's some of our most engaged comments of content of the past couple months is people clicking on and watching our meetings, your meetings. But also we want to push out newsworthy council items through press releases on social media. And video is a big new part of our strategy. The flagship of this movement is our Inside Sandy Springs, our Video Week in Review, which hopefully all of you all have seen by now. We've done 4. We're working on our 5th this week. We post that across all platforms, and I'm segueing into that one right now. So the purpose of this project is to really let citizens know in just a brief 2-minute video, this is some of the highlights of what our city's been up to this week. We launched it January 13th, and since then we've had a lot of engagement across social media platforms. Some of the things we've talked about in these videos are pothole refillings, the sidewalk sanding, grinding down, recaps of city events, important city council actions. Those are all things that we've talked about so far, and there's a lot of more ideas we have moving forward in the future. And these numbers are a little bit outdated because they're prepared for the retreat, but Instagram already 105% increase in engagement. Twitter and YouTube both an 11% increase in engagement. And our follower counts are also really exploded in a short period of time. So that can only get better. This sort of thing usually has a compounding effect. So we're very excited about that because more people who follow us, it's more people who can be involved and informed of what the city is up to. Our newsletter, that's another big part of how residents get their news and they know what the city is doing. We distribute one every month. Our current list is just over 5,000, but we have a very aggressive goal to really grow our distribution list by 10%. But while it's aggressive, we think that's doable based upon we've already seen with social media. Those are the tactics we've kind of laid out. We want to post some of these segmented stories from the newsletter to social media, always driving people back to the newsletter, including video updates and more visuals inside the newsletter, and be more proactive about advertising that newsletter on social media and our video and even in person at public events. But all of that will kind of be for naught, I think, if we don't kind of rethink the newsletter a little bit and be more strategic about the content that we place in it. There's a lot of ideas we've circulated internally that we think would be a good driver of subscribers for this newsletter. And public meetings. So during 2022, our office helped facilitate a number of meetings. Those are a couple of the ones mentioned there. But what I really want to point out is this year we've added Xanthi Tilden to our team, who's really going to assist us in that bilingual outreach. You may know her from the star of Inside Sandy Springs. She also did our year in review video. So she is bilingual, and there are a lot of strategies and ideas we have of how we can tailor audience-specific messages and video updates in Spanish to reach other populations of the city. She's also going to be assisting us with some translation services, neighborhood meetings, some printed collateral that makes sense to have translated. She'll help us out with that as well. And just nothing beats having a person there at public meetings who can help, massage the conversations and who can relate. I think that's going to be a great benefit for us and the city. Second audience, I'll pick up the pace a little bit with the media. We want to forge direct relationships with the media, and by that I just mean a good working professional rapport with them. And there are several different ways we can reach out to them and inform them of what the city is up to. One thing is press releases. Some people may say the press release is dead or it's not as important as it used to be, but I will disagree for two reasons. And one is if it's housed on our website, what better way to tell a story of Sandy Springs than be able to go to our newsroom and be able to scroll through these are all the important things our city took up in the past. I think that's very important. It's also good for our social media because more eyeballs tend to get on it via social media than sometimes than being printed out through the press. So I think that's very important. Also to help out our reporters who can't always cover meetings in person. And one thing I've heard from my conversations with reporters, both my professional career and here, is they really do want some proactive pitching of newsworthy events. They want to cover us. There's things that they want to be a part of, and if there are things that we know about that we can say, hey, this really cool, exciting event is happening, you need to cover it, they'll be happy to cover it from my conversations with them. So that's one thing we want to do is be a lot more proactive in pitching those stories. And the last bit is the utilization of a PR firm to expand media coverage that I'm going to get to next. So recently, we've partnered with Visit Sandy Springs to engage the public relations services of TKPR. We're very excited about this partnership. TKPR has secured a large number of placements. They got the city of Macon on the best places to visit on the New York Times list. I believe they did the same thing with the city of Greenville. There's a lot of exciting opportunities for partnerships here. Currently, we're in phase one, so we're developing a 12-month strategic plan with them. We have several touch bases throughout the year to see where we're going with it. And in our meetings so far, I think they have a really great direction, a really good sense of what would help take Sandy Springs coverage to the next level into national publications and big magazines like you see on the screen there. So the audience three, I thought this was important to mention, are the internal stakeholders. This was kind of talked about at the retreat too. Our office is very, very active in supporting other departments across the city. For example, on the slide there, you see the Get Active Sandy Springs campaign that we helped work with the collateral for. So that included digital, meaning on a computer signage for our outdoor screens, and physical brochures. There are just countless examples I could point to of how park signs, a lot of the signs of our parks were designed and made by our department. So there's a lot of really good internal work being done by our department, who kind of serves as an in-house creative marketing agency to support the operations of the city and really tell our story, and again, make sure that story is being consistent and brand appropriately. And give you a little bit of a view of how busy this section of the department tends to be. Is in 2022, they had 1,150 completed tasks as we tracked through Asana. And this so far in 2023, there's 246. And again, this is a week and a half old information, so I know it's only growing from there. So we are very busy helping out our partners. And something that's not mentioned on there too is we're also, since we've beefed up our video efforts, we've already had conversations with other departments to help them out with producing videos to help some more complex stories they want to tell. And also really quick, I want to mention a unified platform. I know that, as you all know, that Sandy Springs, ga.gov, and other affiliated websites operate under a unified platform. We have some really exciting changes, upgrades in the works for this. we've sort of segmented this out into smaller chunks to take things on one at a time. The first thing we've identified is the search functionality. So to redesign that search interface, if you look on the right there on that slide, that's the look of the new page. That's our vision for the new page. It's going to be better at filtering if you're looking for an event or a document or whatever it may be, sorting it by date better. Filtering tools are very strong. And phase 2 to this will be the integration with Civic Clerk. We're working with our vendor on that, and we're making progress on it. But in the meantime, on that page on the right there, we're going to put a little link that'll say, to search for city council documents, you can click here, taking you to the Civic Clerk page. So that's a little bit of a stopgap in the meantime to help with some confusion if folks have some issues. And also, we've worked with the clerk's office for embedding live video for public meetings on sandspringsga.gov/stream. That's where public meetings are housed on our website, so they don't have to go to a Civic Clerk or a YouTube. It's going to be embedded on our site. And that opens up other opportunities for us as well. If there's other events that we would like to live stream, now they can have a home on our website. It's through YouTube, but it's embedded on the page, so they don't have to ever leave sandspringsga.gov if they don't need to. And more broadly, we have some steps we're taking to address Unified Platform, such as conducting a usability audit for the website, and a couple of other things that are coming down the pipeline pretty soon. So just recapping a little bit, our internal goals for this year, having that 12-month strategic communications plan, that's, it's in the works. We're going to have that done by Q1. The phase 1 of website search project, we're well ahead on that to be Q1. Social media and website training for staff, that's happening soon. Monthly newsletter subscriptions to increase. Working with TKPR to identify those areas to help really push forward the vision of the city and increase our social media following, because that can only help us push a message out further. So that's all I have, but I'm open to any questions by anybody.
Andrew, thank you, and thank you. Welcome to your first month anniversary.
Thank you.
I know just enough about social media to be really dangerous. I know how to post,
Right.
which apparently I'm pretty good at. But there are other aspects. For example, while you were presenting, I checked to make sure I was following the city Facebook page and also City Springs. But I don't see a lot of stuff getting pushed to me. Is that my fault, or is that some other issue?
Well, so that's a good point. So one, to make sure you're following us, but I'm sure you already are.
Yeah.
The second
I checked.
thing,
I am.
Good. The algorithm of Facebook particularly is a little tricky. They respond really well to pictures and videos over text. That's why we've made an effort to do more videos and pictures. Also, we're going through the verification process, be a verified page on both Instagram and Facebook, and the algorithm likes that because I'll push our content more to the top. So
Okay.
we're working on that.
Yeah, because I just don't see a lot. I occasionally get stuff from City Springs that's going on in the theater around here, but I can't recall the last time I got something about what's going on with the city.
And that also points to the engagement number. So if the algorithm sees that we have not gotten a lot of engagement on posts, they won't push us up. But now that we've done things like videos and pictures, and that's getting more clicks and likes and impressions, then you'll probably see more of our stuff moving forward that way.
Okay. What can I do, and what can other people do to kind of make sure that we're in the loop, if you
Right.
will?
If you follow us on all of our platforms. We have a Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn, and just share our stuff.
I've asked the city manager for an 8-year-old to help me with this.
Well, we're happy to help you as well.
I've been asking that for ever since I've been mayor, and they still haven't found an 8-year-old willing to work with me. All right, Ms. Mueller.
So first of all, thank you so much. I'm so excited that we are going to have a strategic communications plan.
Yes.
So important. I don't think we've touted enough about what we do and where we need help. Specific question, though, on the newsletter.
Yes.
You had mentioned about content, polling internally. Have you reached out to the residents to see what they might like to see in a newsletter?
Right. So not yet. But yes, so that's actually something we would like to do within the newsletter. So when we post a newsletter moving forward, we can say, we want to hear your comments, and we can embed a survey in there. And then that way, not only would they be reading the survey, but then they can say, these are the things we want to improve, because that's the audience that's already reading our material. So once we hear what they want more of, then we can include that, and then hopefully more people will be drawn to it. Yes.
Mr. DiGiulio.
Andrew, I, like the mayor, are not very technologically knowledgeable. Would it be possible for you to send us out detailed instructions to make sure we're hooked up onto these different platforms properly? Because if you just give me my device and tell me to hook it up, I might as well just throw it away.
Yes, sir. I'd
But
be happy to do
I
that.
really don't know how.
Yes. I
Okay.
can definitely do that.
Thank you.
No problem.
Anybody else? Mr. Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you very much for this. A quick question. Is Xanthi, the gal that's doing the Week in Review,
Yes.
is she already doing it in Spanish as well as English?
So not yet.
Okay.
But we're trying to be strategic about it. There are certain issues or stories or areas where we feel that that's a key priority. We would definitely want to do that. But the timeline to go out and shoot and film, track down the stories and produce in one language it's a tight timeline to get it out by
Okay.
Thursday. But yes, to your point, if there are opportunities for that, we definitely want to engage on those. Yes.
Okay. And then you mentioned something about the new ability to look at the ability for people to watch the city council meetings instead of the little picture in the upper right-hand corner. How do people watch the meeting and be able to see us as we're talking,
Right.
as opposed to that little picture in the corner?
So that's a little outside of my expertise, but I believe what we've done is there's two different feeds, and Rocky can correct me if I'm wrong. There's the YouTube feed, which pulls from that camera back there. There's also what's the name of the
Here,
company?
let me help you.
Yeah, go ahead.
So right now, for example, we have two feeds running. So one is the Zoom feed. The Zoom feed is what we're pulling from that tiny camera in the corner. Typically, we have Caroline over here in the corner who's sharing the screen so people see the presentation. And that tiny window you're talking about, that's the camera view of you guys sitting here throughout the discussion. In addition to that, you'll see over the past 6 months, we've mounted these larger cameras up here in Studio Theater. So that's pushing to a different feed that we're testing, and I thought I had perfect until this evening. And this is pushing to YouTube. So the plan is for YouTube to be a spot where folks can watch a bunch of our content during live meetings, pushing that YouTube feed with the better camera views to our website. So people could just come to our website and they might happen to see a live event is happening. It's a one-stop shop versus sorting through a bunch of videos on YouTube. So, of course, this evening as we're talking about it, our YouTube feed is not working. So, anyway.
But you're working on it. Sounds like you're trying to get it organized.
Yeah, if you hear me panting over here, that's me struggling with YouTube. So anyway, we're working on it. But just so you know, we are live streaming on Civic
Yes.
Clerk through our second feed.
Okay, well, just be good for people to be able to do that and actually see the people talking. And then one final comment. The Week in Review, you said there's 5,000 subscribers?
So for a newsletter, we have
The
about
newsletter,
5,000.
5,000 subscribers?
Yes.
So a city of 110,000, to my inexperienced mind, 5,000 is not very much out of 110,000. So what's a good bogey there for participation? Should it be 10,000? Should it be 50,000? I have no idea. I'm just asking.
So I don't know what a good benchmark would be, but our plan is 20% growth, which is very ambitious. But I feel like with these strategies that we're using, pushing out on social media, using it in the video content, having more engaging content posted in there, like I said before, it really is a compounding thing. Once we get one person, we get two, then we get four. So it's going to be a slow burn at first, but then I feel like if we follow our strategy, we'll get there. We'll never get 110,000, but we can do better than 5,000.
Everybody's got at least one of these, and everybody's
Exactly.
got, I mean, it seems to me like everybody's looking at something on this.
Yes.
They should be looking at us on Tuesday night, right?
Well, I'm
I
not
agree.
sure if they got a choice between watching us and Yellowstone that we're going to win. But we'll give it our best shot. Ms. Rochelle.
Are we going to be at the farmers market and special events that we have here, signing up people and educating them on what we have to offer?
Yes, that's part of our plan too. Meeting them at these public events. there's some things I haven't discussed with the departments I should have, so I don't want to get ahead of myself, but there are some innovative ways we think we can work with like parks or other departments to kind of have a one-stop shop for getting people in one, funnel people down to our newsletter, yes.
Anybody else? Ms. Mueller, excuse me.
So this is for Kristen, so this is on the customer engagement. Are you setting goals for the different departments for customer engagement and then the metrics to measure so that, you know, what does success look like? I think Councilman Paulson had asked that during the retreat.
Yes, so that's something we're working on now. We wanted to see what we would get. And right now, I think something like 65% of all of our comments thus far have been strictly for community development. So we want to try to expand that footprint so that we're touching other departments in new ways. So Andrew and I were talking today about QR codes in other places in the city where people might be engaging with staff. So we're trying to figure out how to expand the survey and at the same time figure out what a good metric is for different departments as more departments are getting survey results.
Okay. And another question on the, you said 95% satisfied or satisfaction. The 5%, is there any common themes? And if so, what are they, if you can speak to those? And then have we taken actions or do we have a plan to address them?
Yes, so of the, I think it was 2 or 3 that we had that weren't great, one of them actually immediately the next day submitted a good one and said, never mind. So we still counted it, but it was resolved on its own. And the other, we didn't get any ability to reach back out to that person, so it's optional for them to provide that. And if they don't tell us who they talked to or that sort of thing, but we try to take that feedback immediately, so it notifies us as soon as we get a survey result. So if there's something we can act on, we want to do it immediately.
But, all right, Dr. Kelly.
So, well, I'll ask first before I suggest. Is there a specific option for the public to comment on their experience with code enforcement specifically?
Yes, so when you click into the survey, you can choose which team you engaged with, and I think code enforcement is an option.
Okay.
And then there's sort of a more general
In the
option, so
customer
you can
service
pick.
survey?
Yes.
Okay, because on the screenshot here, it doesn't have it listed specifically, but
Yeah, so it's a drop-down menu, so you don't see it on my screenshot, but if you go in there, it drops down and you can pick which team you engaged with. So it's general across the city, but most of the teams are listed there that people engage with directly.
so you would have to go to planning and zoning in order to see the code enforcement, or like what would you go to?
No, so when you go, sorry, I'll pull it up and walk through it right now.
Yeah, because I guess my suggestion would be, could we make that a little more transparent for people who may not associate code enforcement with planning, if you will?
Yes, so you're saying add a specific code enforcement box.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's easily doable.
Okay.
Well, thank you. QR codes, I've finally figured those out. When restaurants went to QR codes with their menus, it was like 6 months. I almost starved before I finally figured out how to order my food using one of those things. So you can look at me now and tell that I've overcome that problem. So, all right, Andrew, Kristen, thank you very much. We appreciate it. All right, moving on to the next item, the draft Roswell Road Access Management Plan by Ms. Westcott.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We are so happy to be here tonight to review the draft access management plan with you and the recommendations which we address, 1, ongoing safety concerns for Roswell Road, balancing the needs of citizens and businesses and supporting economic development, and making Roswell Road more attractive and better serve all travelers, whether they're on foot, in a vehicle, riding their bike, or riding transit. We've been working on this plan for a number of months, and as you know, we really took a very detailed technical deep dive into what current access management treatments could be and what that looks like, as well as listening and engaging with the public through our public outreach efforts. And as we walked through this process and listening to the concerns, we really narrowed it down to the most specific prioritized projects for segments where we can actually see meaningful input and have the greatest safety impacts. So as such, tonight we're going to present the draft plan to you, and we will return at a later meeting for a plan approval. So tonight, to help present the plan recommendations are Nathan Gomez with Gresham Smith, who was our project manager, and Caitlin Schenkel, who is our senior transportation planner for the city, who led our effort internally.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Good evening. My objective for today is, like Kristen said, to give a brief overview of the draft Roswell Road Access Management Plan, and then once the presentation is over, with the help of my project team, answer any questions. So the Roswell Road Access Management Plan was furthered from a prior approved plans, both the Next 10 Comprehensive Plan and also the Roswell Road Small Area Plan, which recommended an access management plan to be developed, including looking at race medians, interparcel connectivity, reducing curb cuts along Roswell Road. So what we have strived to do as part of this developing this plan was to take the recommendations from those approved documents from back in 2016 and do as such, develop that plan. The crux of the plan development itself and the recommendations that we have come up with in this draft plan was to look at the incidence and the frequency of crashes along Roswell Road, and specifically talking about the crashes that might result in a fatality or a serious injury crash. Those are the crashes that are life-altering. And once we did that detailed crash analysis, looking at the historical crashes along Roswell Road, what we found was approximately 1 in 4 crashes that we see along Roswell Road results in an injury, inclusive of 11 crashes which resulted in a fatality and almost 29 crashes resulting in a serious injury. Also important to note is that when we compare Roswell Road to similar facilities within the state, the rate of crashes or the frequency of incidents of crashes along Roswell Road is almost twice as high compared to the similar facilities within the state. And that shows a problem that we need to address along Roswell Road from the crash perspective. Also important to note is that almost 1/3 of all fatal crashes or crashes that resulted in a death included turning movements in and out of driveways along Roswell Road. So this indicates some of the risk factors that we then decided to address as part of development of the plan, such as the two-way left turn lane that we see along Roswell Road, the frequency of curb cuts along Roswell Road, and the lack of pedestrian crossing opportunities along Roswell Road. Just to give a high-level understanding of the timeline that we went through, we started the plan back in August 2021, and we are now in February 2023. The plan development followed essentially 3 phases. The first phase was understanding the existing conditions along Roswell Road. The middle phase was development of the alternatives, and the last phase was developing the access management plan itself, which included the list of projects, the cost of those projects, how we can fund those, and a plan for implementation of those, and which we'll see that in a second. At the top of the slide, the blue arrow shows the continuous community engagement that we went through as we developed this plan, and that looks in detail like how this slide shows. back from fall of 2021, we started with several stakeholder engagement activities as we were looking at our existing conditions. And then towards the beginning of 2022, we had an opportunity to do a public meeting, which included an online data gathering map input session. And then as we developed the alternatives, we again had a public meeting towards summer, June of 2021. And then we are now here with the draft plan in February 2023. Now for the recommendations of the plan itself. I'll go through in three different sections. Even though we looked at the entire length of Roswell Road from the city limit on the south side from Meadowbrook all the way to Dunwoody Place in the north, almost 8.9 miles of Roswell Road, and the plan recommends projects, race median projects for the entire length. We know those projects are take a long time to construct. So what the plan really recommends is the top projects from those 8.9 miles, where we looked at the entire segment in 18 different segments, and we took 4 segments where the safety need was the highest. So those are the priority projects which the plan is recommending to be furthered in the short and midterm. Essentially, that would mean project activities be started in the next years. So activities like identifying funding, procuring design services, and not necessarily construction starting, but it could in the next 10 years. Just like those 4 segments, the plan also recommends 5 mid-block crossings, those signalized pedestrian crossings for folks to cross Roswell Road from one side to the other. The plan also includes what we are calling implementation guidance, so that when each of those priority projects are advanced into design, these guidance would tell a designer how to do those design activities, things like median width, the spacing of median openings, where the openings need to be placed, how they can be adjusted. Each of these design activities will have its own public engagement that will go along with it. So, there will be a need for adjusting those designs as these projects go further into completion. It also includes some guidance for how to do landscaping, lighting, and other necessary design features that go with each of those priority projects. Obviously, beyond those top 4 priority projects, there are other projects that needs to be done along Roswell Road, because we do know that crashes do happen all along Roswell Road. So those risk factors that I said that we saw based on our crash analysis is evident and do exist all along Roswell Road. So even though we are prioritizing 4 segments as part of the capital projects, we want to be prepared for these other projects, which might take much longer than capital projects to happen. And we know that most of them could happen with redevelopment. So we also provided some guidance within the plan to reinforce some of the policies that the city already has related to development. So making sure and reinforcing the need for why access management is good, why medians should be considered, why interparcel access should be considered as part of redevelopment, or driveway consolidation and driveway spacing criteria should be considered with redevelopment happening. So that is also included in the plan. Now, for the specific the priority corridor segments, the table shows the 4 different priority projects. The map on the right-hand side shows the location. The first project, S1, is part of the ongoing currently designed project T19, so it'll be handled through that, which is a segment just south of 285. S2 is the segment from 285 to Hammond Drive, just north of the interchange. S3 is between Johnson's Ferry and Chaseland, and S4 is on the north side of the corridor from Northridge Road to Hightower. This is a picture of how an example segment could look like. So you can see the in the middle where now there is a two-way left turn lane is repurposed into a raised median. And towards the middle of the side street, you can see the feature which we are referencing as a restricted crossing U-turn or an intersection treatment where the side street turning movements can be controlled at each of these median openings along Roswell Road. And I can come back to this slide if we have questions. I also mentioned, in addition to the 4 priority segment projects, there are these 5 priority mid-block crossing projects, which are those pedestrian crossings to help pedestrians cross from one side of Roswell to the other side with the help of a traffic signal, almost very similar to what you see just on the south side of south of Long Island Drive. So there are 5 locations that we've identified that could enhance opportunities for crossing along Roswell Road. One of them is being designed along with the T19 project just south of 285, and a depiction of how that would look like is in this slide, which shows the elements of how a crossing can be achieved across Roswell Road safely with a marked crosswalk, with signal heads, and so on and so forth. With that, I just want to conclude by stating some of the next steps. Today was the opportunity to present the draft plan for your consideration, and then going forward, your council to consider adoption on the next council meeting on the 21st. I already mentioned that the design is undergoing as part of the T19 project, continuing the T19 project and including those access management elements as part of the project. And then the programming those 4 corridor segment priority projects and the mid-block priority projects in the future planning of the city. With that, I think me and Caitlin or Kristen, we're ready to take any questions and help answer your questions that you might have.
Any questions? Dr. Kelly.
All right. Thank you for that thorough presentation. I think I have 2 questions. First question, when we talk about the prioritization process, there's a category, a ranking category referred to as safety benefit. I just wanted to get a better understanding about what went into safety benefit.
Okay. So the safety benefit that we are using to rank these projects. We know the historical crashes that has been happening throughout the corridor. We know the treatments that we came up with. Each of those treatments through research has been documented to have a certain level of crash reduction potential. So, for example, installing a race median at a segment instead of a two-way left turn lane has X percentage of potential to reduce overall crashes, Y percent of potential to reduce those fatal and severe injury crashes. So we can do the safety analysis to understand how many crashes can be reduced if such a treatment were to be installed. And we can also understand if those improvements were to be made and those crash reductions could be realized, that could also be converted into a monetary benefit. And those calculations are done following, guidance that federal FHWA, Federal Highway Administration, have put in place, which are generally used for transportation projects. So those 2 things, the crash reduction potential of those treatments and also the crash benefit in dollars are the 2 things that we looked at on the safety analysis.
And I'll just add that the crash benefit is more than just the damage to a car. You actually place a lot of emphasis on value of life. And so if there's a fatal crash you can prevent, that's going to be a much higher benefit than if it was just a fender-bender. And so all that was calculated into the safety benefit.
Okay. because one of the things I've been wondering just for a while, so I'll ask you, is there any precedent for including as a priority category situations where you have a significant intersection in terms of crash rate, but that intersection is the only way in or out of a residential neighborhood? So that's just one of the things I was just wondering if there's any precedent for in your expert.
And so I think the question there is like related to access for and in when we develop the plan and doing the analysis, we are considering access along Roswell Road, looking at where median openings needs to be, the spacing of those openings. But I also want to mention that during any of these projects that we are recommending, during the design phase, any of those can be revised, altered. That is a detailed design process that has to go with any of these priority projects. So once the city decides to further, say, for example, one of the priority projects, the initial design activities will include its own public engagement, its own stakeholder engagement, property owner engagement, and quite honestly, the main thing that would have to be worked out is the operations of the corridor and access for those parcels adjacent to Roswell Road. So, there. I mean, I think the precedent is that needs to happen for all the projects. And that every transportation project that I know of do have an element of public engagement, stakeholder engagement, and property owner engagement that happens.
Okay, last question for project evaluation. It mentions in this section of the report that economic impact may be assessed. So I wanted to just take a moment to encourage staff and everyone to, in term, on the back end, when we assess the effectiveness of these measures, we include the economic impact to the businesses. Thanks.
Anybody else? Mr. Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So to build on Dr. Kelly's point, looking back in history, I'm thinking to myself, this is data from 2019 that you've been analyzing. We redid Carpenter Drive and straightened that intersection out. So one of my questions is, has that improvement in the traffic ability resulted in lower damages, car crashes specifically? We did another one where we extended the island on Northridge Road, north of Northridge Road on Roswell Road, to the point where if you're coming south, you can't turn into that where the Goodwill is now. And we've done that a couple of years ago. And the economic part of this is that mall looks like it's struggling. Is it struggling because of our island? I'd be interested in how much information you could glean about the impact of that. I'm sure it's safer because nobody's turning that way now, but still, if we're causing a struggle to that shopping center, that'd be one to be interested in looking at, both safety as well as economic impact. And then you have one that the third one that we're just finishing, which is right by the QT up south of Grogan's Ferry. It'd be interesting to see the data on that because that literally is happening right now. So in addition to looking forward, and I think these are all good targets for opportunity and improvement, but I would suggest we look back and just see how well some of the other ones have done as well, both safety as well as economic, because it doesn't serve us well if we wind up driving all the businesses out of a business.
Yeah, and I'll speak to the benefit or the analysis we can do before and after studies. And so thinking about through the economic impact and what we can do, I think we'll reach out to economic development as well to kind of get some insight into there, to take some surveys of the businesses. But within the implementation guidance, there is a recommendation to actually have some before and after studies done for that same reason, because that can also inform our other projects down the line.
One of the things I would encourage you to think about is in the instance that Mr. Paulson just cited, if you turn left, you can't go into where the Goodwill, that whole shopping center is. But if you turn left on Northridge, you can go up and you can turn into the shopping center. We may need signage to help people understand they can still get to some of these places. But I want to reemphasize, this has been a concern from the very beginning, is that these medians, I've cited the example of Memorial Drive when I was in Stone Mountain, how that killed an entire a very thriving economic area and just killed it over about a 3-year period, and it is not today recovered. So we have to be very careful in balancing. I mean, the value of a human life or serious injury, no question we want to deal with that and make this place as safe as possible. But at the same time, we've got to be thoughtful about what are the impacts of these traffic decisions on our economic centers in these areas that already were struggling, and then we just don't want to drive the last nail in their coffin in doing that. Ms. Rochelle.
So the intersection where the QT is in Grogan's Bluff, I have heard some complaints about the U-turn that you have to make there and how skinny it is, and you have to, some cars have to do the U-turn and then back up and then go. And I know in the plan that there's several U-turns, and that does worry me.
Yeah, I can't speak to the design of that project, but we can check in with the project manager to see how that's designed. There are standards for having what you see, the eyebrows in the document, which gives you more space for turning. So again, not familiar with what is done on that project, but we can check in with them to see if there are any variances involved. The other thing for that one is the signal's not in there quite yet, and so once the signal is in place, it may also help with the U-turns.
Mr. DiGiulio.
Would you go back to that really nice picture you had there, the one you said you were going to come back to?
Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
I notice on there, I would think, driving on Roswell Road all the time, especially south of 285, the people that are killed there, what percentage of those are jaywalkers versus drivers? And I don't see any crosswalking apparatus there, too, because I know myself, when I leave here tonight and I go home, I'll go down Roswell Road, and if I'm not careful, somebody crossing that street wearing dark colors, I won't see them until I'm actually on them, and I know that's got to be one of our big problems. That's why we put a hawk down by, Fountain Oaks. Down by Fountain Oaks, we put a hawk down there, but I don't see any of that type of stuff on here. All I see is, all we're concerned about is car turns on here. And what percentage of our fatalities and injuries are pedestrians?
So we did look at all the crashes, pedestrian crashes, which are results of jaywalking. I don't have the percentage with me right now, but the decisions were not made one way or the other, influenced by that. When one of the analysis that specifically related to pedestrian crossings is we're looking at opportunities for crossing. So where there is transit service, where there's a preponderance of land uses where people need to cross from one side to the other, we do want to give them opportunities to cross frequently. So traffic signals do give that opportunity to cross. So all traffic signals do have crosswalks. However, when we do have traffic signals where the spacing between those traffic signals go higher than 1,000 feet, we are looking at opportunities to provide a hawk or that pedestrian hybrid beacon or that crosswalk with the traffic signal. So some of the prioritized mid-block crossings that we identified, the top 5 ones, was identified based on the number of transit usage nearby, the surrounding land use. And some of the crossings that we even saw, even without any crossing apparatus there. So some of those things went into identifying those locations of mid-block crossings. So this specific graphic, the reason it is not showing a crosswalk across Roswell Road is typically to allow a safe crossing of a multi-lane highway, which has speeds of 35 and operating even higher than 35, to make that crossing safe, we do need to have a signalized mechanism. Most of these intersections, which are designed as restricted crossing U-turns, are unsignalized. If they were signalized, clearly they will have a crossing. All signalized intersections have crossings, and then beyond that, we are identified those locations for signalized mid-block crossings based on the need. I'm not sure if I answered those.
I'll advance. Or can you advance to the pedestrian crossing? Yeah. So this is an example of a median opening for vehicles. There are separate. This is the pedestrian crossing where you have the signal for the pedestrian. So that's where you see the crosswalk.
Well, and that's where you have all. And exactly that area is where you have so many people who walk, and they walk across. And when on that other picture you had where that concrete island was in the middle, that just seems to be, that would be a place for people to rest as they go halfway across and jaywalk the other halfway on there. And so I think we need to look at more. And also the other thing I'd like to know is, we've done a lot of intersection improvements. We've done one down at Roswell Road and Windsor Parkway. We've done one at Roswell Road and Glen Ridge. I'd like to know, since we've done these intersection improvements, what the crash data and the injury data has it really helped? Because we've put a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of study into these things here, and I'd like to know how they've worked out. Is that something you guys can get us, that data?
So I think we can do some before and after studies. It depends on when the improvement went in. So if it's been less than a year, we might want to wait a little bit longer than that. Other than that, I think we can talk internally and see what we can do for doing some before and after studies. Crash data is actually really easy to pull. GDOT actually provides an online database now, and so you're able to see the year, type of crash, all that information pretty easily.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Ms. Mueller.
So I think while it's important that we improve safety, we need to keep in mind when we're going and doing these redesign projects of our communities that are along Roswell Road, so that we don't impact their, and add a lot of trip time and mileage. I mean, obviously we need to keep them safe, but obviously we don't want them to have to go take a trip around the country to get back home, right, when they're going northbound, because many of the communities that are from Abernathy Road going northbound to Dalrymple on either side, Councilwoman Rochelle and I both have communities that are along there that we want to make sure that when we get the design, that it's going to be smart design.
And I think that's the nice thing about chunking it down into smaller projects, is that once you get into a smaller project and develop a concept, people have one thing to focus on as opposed to an entire 8.9-mile corridor. And so there's definitely going to be more engagement along the way. There is a general recommendation for having a raised median throughout the corridor, just because we know having a two-way left turn lane is a risk factor. Even if there's not been a fatal crash somewhere today, because left turning crashes with high speeds, that could be a fatal crash any day. And so that's why we want to keep an eye on it, but that's why there's a recommendation for the entire corridor.
And then one more, I know we've talked a lot about the business access, but interparcel connectivity, I know a lot of times that's out of our hands as the city because there's individual parcel owners, but whatever we can do to facilitate that, I think is going to help if we're going to be changing out the curb cuts, but we have to be mindful of that.
Definitely, and that's the other element for our longer term projects, is a lot of it really will depend on redevelopment, because without the interparcel connectivity, the median doesn't always work. And so that's a key element that we're going to reemphasize with community development too.
Anybody else? All right, thanks. We look forward to seeing you on the 21st.
Thank you.
Just one quick item under discussion items. I was going to save this for later, but I think it's appropriate for this. Received a call from Senator Ossoff this week to let us know that we had been approved for our Safe Streets grant. So we are getting that. Maybe we can use some of that money to help us figure out some of this stuff. It was a very good conversation, and I told him how much we appreciated his help in getting that grant for us. And he said, well, your staff did a great job on setting yourself up for it. So that was good. Thanks to Eden, Marty, and your team. So that's a step in the right direction. We'll close the, the work session, and now